Reverend McDaniel touched Chattanooga, and not just Chattanooga, but Tennessee, in so many different ways. His church was a huge church, had a great influence for the betterment of Chattanooga. He was also head of the Unity group here. He started the Unity group here. That made a really big impact. And he was a person of sterling character.
Reverend McDaniel was my pastor for 48 years. I was at Second Baptist when he came in 1966. And so I grew with him, grew with the church, and I just knew him all along. I watched him. I sat at his feet.
I never ever saw Reverend McDaniel, and I'm sure someplace at some time he was, but he was always level-headed, and he was always soft-spoken, and he was always using words to convince you, not physical emotion. He just didn't do that. Now, he showed some of that when he was preaching, but he didn't show any of that when he was dealing with people on important issues in downtown and in this community.
The schools in Chattanooga were being desegregated, and his children were going to Brainerd High School. Brainerd at the time was predominantly white. There were very few blacks there, and there was resistance to having black kids there. And there was a huge disturbance there that either bordered on a riot or in fact was a riot. Reverend McDaniel, with no concern to his personal safety, went there and diffused the situation. And his kids stayed at school. They graduated from the school. You can imagine what bravery that took, because many people in the community did not appreciate that and would not have liked the idea of him inserting himself into that.
His love for people and the community was when Brainerd had they had the dogs out there. It was just integration and all of that. And he went out. He was the only one stood over there by those dogs and talked to the policeman. And finally he asked him, don't turn these dogs on these children, turn them on the mob over there. And he didn't back down. And I watched him. I watched every move he made.
One of his most significant ways is when he took on the government in a lawsuit to give ministers the freedom to become involved in government. And I don't remember the particulars of that because it's been a long time. But Reverend McDaniel was the first one to challenge the Tennessee Constitution, which said that ministers couldn't be elected to office. And Reverend McDaniel challenged that, took it all the way to the Supreme Court, and got a ruling that changed the government and changed the Constitution of the state of Tennessee, as I recall it. And that is significant because it benefited the entire state. And it started in motion something that could then be spread across the country. So that was an issue that he took on.
He preached love, he taught love, he was love. And that was my favorite. It came finally came as we grew, and he grew with us and we grew with him. We knew what that meant when he talked about love and what love could do and what love could change the world. That's what he said. If you just love, because God is love. And if we just stay with it, we see how it all works out for his glory and our good.
He always thought things out, and he rarely made an impromptu decision without thinking through the pros and cons of it. And you could tell that when you were sitting there talking to him, you could just see him saying, okay, let me think about this for a minute. And probably in some of those instances, he probably was actually praying about it while he's sitting there talking to you. But he was patient in dealing with people, that he was a significant force of change in this community. And that we thank you for allowing him to spend more time with us than he did with you.
Reverend Paul Anderson McDaniel Sr. For 48 years, he preached God's word, he lived God's word, and we are the recipient of seeing God in action through Paul A. McDaniel.
Reverend McDaniel was such a wonderful, wonderful role model and mentor and teacher. And we're so fortunate that he came in our lives. We had him for a very, very brief time. Our church is not what it is without Reverend McDaniel's contribution. And I know that the family had to sacrifice for him to accomplish the things he did. He traveled a lot, and being the child and the spouse of a pastor is not an easy task. So I thank you all for letting him be the man that he was.